propose is not that. And what I propose is that we be absolutely upfront with our citizens as it pertains to the financial situation that we are in, and propose that there be an income tax placed on the ballot in May, and if that income tax is successful, then the garbage collection fee would leave, only if it was successful. Okay, now that's how I framed it, and that's how I was envisioning it if we were to go forward. It's up to the majority of the members of this body as it pertains to what we do. But again, I will just say this, write today's date and time down, because I will tell you, we're going to be back at this table trying to figure out, because the one-time pots of money that we are utilizing to balance this budget are going to be gone in 2011. And we're going to figure out at that time, and the worst scenario would be we find ourselves at this table talking about an income tax, a mandatory income tax submission to the voters, plus laying off of city employees, plus laying off of city employees. That's the worst case scenario. So I'm prepared to do what I have to do, working with this administration, my colleagues, to get us through 2010. But I'm going to tell you, the clock is ticking, and unless there's a major turnaround in this country, which we all hope there's going to be, but let the proof be in the pudding. If not, we've got talk about some heavy lifting, my colleagues. You don't know what heavy lifting is like if you find yourself in that situation.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. Chair, to the councilman, and this fits in line if you're saying we use conservative projections, which we often do. One of my analysts brought me a note and said, move your comma over. I said it would be $150 million worth of jobs to recover the $30 million that we lost at 2%. It's actually $1.5 billion worth of payroll that we would have to recover at 2% to replace the $30 million that we lost in 2009. So that falls in line with saying that I'm too conservative, but a wrong
Thank
time.
you, Councilman Zong. And Mr. Muncy, you just had a good 24 minutes of dialogue.
Well, please excuse me.
No, you didn't want a personal privilege.
There's a couple points of orders in there too. Through the chair, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair, Chief Sullivan and Director Dumas, and my honorable colleagues and those listening, either at the TV or in the room. You know, it's often that we hear legislation here at this table, and it's just a slam dunk. You know what's going to happen. And there are times, though, when there are difficult votes. And this is one of those difficult votes. And to change is difficult. People have a difficult time changing habits, or they expect certain something. And I'm one of those individuals, I know that. And I learn every day as I sit as a council person, and I've always taken this job really serious, and I've looked at the situation. The documents you gave us, Chief and Director, around what other communities are doing on this issue, we have been given a great service to the city for decades. And, you know, I think we need to take an approach that that we have to encourage people to throw away less. There's something to be said about frugality and living a frugal lifestyle. So, Chief, just a couple questions for you, and then a couple for Director Dumas. You know, Chief Stillman, you made a comment, but you know, Director Dumas, you're the numbers person. You said when this was offered, you came in and you said it as low as you could sell it, that you thought, or said it. The mayor was really clear and said, if we're going to impose this fee, let's impose it and do it at the lowest possible. You came in at $9.25, and this council is considering an amendment on the table that fixes it at $8. So what I'm curious to know is that's $5 less a household. What's that impact, that financial impact, going to have to the parts of the city that are already doing recycling and our ability to expand recycling and do it in the future? As you heard me last week, I don't have any street in my ward that has leaf pickup for high leaf generation areas. I wish I did, but I see the value of that program, and I know there's a direct correlation to keeping our sewer systems healthy, and viable by picking up those leaves. So my question, either Director Dumas or Chief Silverman, is if this program is changed as proposed from $9.25, is what the administration proposed, to what the amendment on the floor is from City Council to $8, what does that do? What does that mean in terms of keeping the existing recycling programs in place and future potential expansion?
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Zell, I'm going to briefly answer because the Councilman and I talked about this point earlier today, but then I'm going to ask my colleague, Director Dumas, to speak directly to the $8 number. But through the chair to Councilman Zell, my answer is, as I said earlier in the day, it makes it more challenging to do the recycling, and it makes it really imperative that we finance it over a 10-year period as opposed to a shorter period. Had we been able to get the $9.25 rate, we could have talked about an earlier retirement of the debt. But once you cut the fee down to $8, you really have, the only way to do this is going to be financed over a 10-year period, and that's why it becomes important that we have that option here. What it means is that in year 1, 2010, virtually all the money is going to be going towards our budget situation, but hopefully as time goes by, our collection rate will improve and the increases will allow some leeway there, and we can talk about financing the recycling and getting it moving. So I think the recycling thing remains, one of the purposes of doing this. It makes it a little harder to finance it on a short-term basis. We can still do it, it's just more of a challenge, and I'll let Sharon either correct or supplement.
Director?
That's correct. Exactly.
So what is that number? What is that number if we start this out at $8 versus $9.25? And what does that mean in terms of, what financially will that cost us, the city, for our cash flow?
Mr. Chair, the councilman, I did provide to the council a schedule that had $8. Yes. And so that kind of gives you a different collection rates, what each one of those rates would be. So the $8 rate, I think I gave you a 95%, 90 to 85%
You
collection.
think we're going to be at somewhere around an 85% collection?
Well, I'll take, as Councilman Blunt said, the most conservative to what we would possibly collect. So the initial enforcement of trying to retrieve some of the dollars we spend for garbage collection, quite naturally, is for operations. At the higher rate, I knew the council's interest in automated trash collection and wanting to expand the program with the bins, and at the higher rate, we were hoping to develop a reserve at which we could do that. It would also have allowed us some additional costs for implementation that we're now kind of shifting to the water department, and that we're going to rely on their database for homestead. So at the lower rate, we'll have the operating cost, hopefully, if we're able to implement timely, and the collection rate is good, we'll have what we need to plug on the operating end. And again, then we would go back to kind of doing the recycling rollout at a slower pace.
And
On that point,